Is surfing your favorite thing about the UP, or what's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing about how it's just nature.
Everybody's friendly.
You are? I mean, you've been very friendly right now, yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh.
And we get a hug.
Oh. She gave me a hug.
Oh, that's all right.
It's a windy morning in Mackinac City, Michigan. I'm currently at Alexander Henry Park, one of the northernmost points of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. And that right there in front of me is the mighty Mackinac Bridge, which crosses the Strait of Mackinac and connects the Lower Peninsula where I'm standing with the Upper Peninsula of Michigan right over there. Now, usually by this time of year, the day today is October the 30th, it's already quite cold, maybe in the high 40s, low 50s at the warmest. I got really lucky. It is windy, but it is currently 65 degrees. Oh, that over there is the old Mackinac Point Lighthouse, constructed in 1892. But the purpose of today's video isn't to walk around this beautiful town of around 800 residents. It is to cross that massive bridge into what I consider America's best kept secret. And I actually want to feel how cold the water is here on Lake Huron before. It's got a little bite to it. On my left is Lake Michigan, and on my right is Lake Huron. Straight in front of me is the suspension portion of the longest suspension bridge in the Western Hemisphere. Yes, the Mackinac Bridge, at over 5 miles long, is longer than any other bridge of its type in North or South America. It was constructed in 1957. Before that, you actually used to have to take a ferry across these massive lakes. Like, holy! I still can't believe this is freshwater. It literally looks like I am crossing the ocean. But since we have still just started crossing this bridge, we will likely be on it for another 5 or so minutes. How about I tell you a few fun facts about the Upper Peninsula? Overall, the UP takes up 29% of the landmass of Michigan, yet with just 301,000 people, it houses just 2.9% of the population. Let's go by this oversized load truck. Wow. This is Interstate 75, y'all. Now, the Upper Peninsula had its peak population of around 333,000 people a century ago, back in 1920, which at the time was actually 11% of the state's population. Today, the population density is just 8.3 people per square mile. If it were its own state, it would be the 4th least densely populated state, with around a similar population density to Montana. And the entire Upper Peninsula is above 45 degrees north. As I'm sure you can imagine, the weather is typically not the best up here. Wow, look at those islands. But usually by end of October, parts of the Keweenaw Peninsula especially are already seeing snow and below freezing temperatures. So we are coming towards the end of the bridge now. I have been on this bridge for a solid 8 minutes. That over there is the famous Mackinac Island. The island you have to take a ferry to, and which does not allow cars. I would love to do a video on Mackinac Island. If you want to see that, let's hit 10,000 likes. But there is a Michigan Welcome Center straight ahead, and I think in around 5 seconds, we will officially be in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I have to pay this toll real quick. I think it's $4 or $5. So the toll costed $4. Welcome to Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Oh, I wanted to check out this welcome center. I guess it's closed. It is the end of October, and a lot of stuff in the Upper Peninsula is seasonal. Most things are only open from mid-June to mid-October. So let's turn in to St. Ignace. Now, for a little reference of where I am on a map, I'm currently about 300 miles northwest of Detroit. I just crossed that mighty, mighty bridge, and we're here entering the town of St. Ignace. If I went left, I would go to Manistique and Escanaba. We will be visiting those towns later today as well. Now, the population of St. Ignace is 2,306 residents, which may not seem like the largest community. The economy is mostly tourism-based nowadays, but this city is actually the largest city in the county, Mackinac County, as well as the county seat. And overall, it's the 16th most populous community in the Upper Peninsula. As you'll soon discover, the Upper Peninsula is one of the most wild, unsettled, pristine regions of the country. outside of Alaska. A lot of these towns have been cut off from the rest of the country for decades. They're so unique, so charming, frozen in time, if you may. And a lot of parts of this Upper Peninsula actually still don't have cell coverage. Now that right there is the Wawatam Lighthouse, which may seem like a very historic old lighthouse that has been guiding mariners for over 100 years. Funny enough, it was actually constructed back in 1998 as a roadside attraction on the border with Ohio in the very southern portion of the state. It was moved here and made a functional lighthouse in 2004, and now it guides mariners as well as snowmobilers in the wintertime. Yes, I was not kidding when I said it gets very cold up here. It gets so cold that many parts of these lakes actually freeze. Now this is a nice little boardwalk walking up to the lighthouse. That landmass behind it is Mackinac Island, like I was saying earlier. Revenue derived from oil, gas, and mineral production, providing funding for the public recreation site. Yes, the Upper Peninsula has a lot of mining history, but I want to show you guys at least 5 or 6 idyllic Upper Peninsula towns today, as well as quite a few more lighthouses. Michigan actually has 129 lighthouses in the entire state, which is by far the most of any state. But let's get things started in the beautiful town of St. Ignace. Oh wait, this one disconnected.
So what brought you to little town of St. Ignace in northern Michigan?
I love the Upper Peninsula. And although I don't live in the UP, I could set my IP address to the UP with Surfshark. Today's sponsor. Surfshark VPN is an app and browser extension which encrypts your internet activity, blocks ads and malware, and allows you to virtually switch your IP address to anywhere in the world. This allows you to access sites that might be censored in your state or country, and if you're someone like me who loves to travel, Surfshark can help you save money on flights, car rentals, and hotels by switching your location. For example, my recent flight to Easter Island with LATAM was a lot cheaper on the Chilean version of the site. And if you're still unsure about whether or not you want a VPN, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's really no risk to try it out. So what are you waiting for? Head over to surfshark.com/from here to there, or click the first link in the description and get an additional 4 months added to your first plan for free. But now let's get back to the UP and let this Uper explain what makes it so special. Sandy, you said you were born and raised in St. Ignace?
Born and raised in St. Ignace. Got married, moved away when we were 21. My husband, he joined the Air Force for over 20 years. We lived in Delaware, Charleston, and outside Boston. We loved the East Coast. We thought this is where we want to live. But we came home and looked around and said, gosh, we've got that right here. We moved back after 34 years and we're retired here and absolutely loving it.
And what's your favorite thing about the UP as a Uper?
The water. That was one thing. I was like, we have to have a house that you're looking at the water. So we get to see the island every day and all the ferry boats.
Is tourism still throughout this season, or is it mostly only summer?
I would say up till about last week.
Oh, okay.
All the hotels were full because they all come up for the leaves. The ferry boats have been packed. Our tourism used to stop right after Labor Day, but now it's right up till the middle third week of October.
As someone who's lived in other parts of the country, what's the biggest difference between life here and other places you've lived?
Oh, it's just a quaint little town. You know people. When you go out for a walk, you bump into different ones and you can talk. If you go to the gas station, you run into somebody you know. And if there is a little tragedy with a family, everybody pulls together, supports that family in small town living.
No, it seems like even now you just waved hi to me from up on the dock and I was like, oh, let's talk to you.
Yeah.
Do you miss anything about life in the rest of the country, or do you have everything you feel like you need here?
We've been there, done that. Our oldest son lives in Nashville, Tennessee. We go visit him, and when we go back in with all the semis and the cars and the nonstop traffic, we come back and we're going, oh, we're so happy to be here. So we can go visit it and then come home. We go down to Petoskey. We do our shopping there. If I need to go to Costco or Target, I go to Traverse City.
And how far is Traverse City?
That is a 2-hour drive.
Okay.
But we make a day of it, hit stores all over.
I guess to go off of the remoteness, obviously it's a big reason why it's so beautiful and pristine here, but say visiting your son, like where's the closest airport?
We can go 35 minutes north or 35 minutes south.
Oh, there's an airport in Petoskey.
Pellston, before Petoskey, actually.
Oh, really? It's obviously cold and snowy in the wintertime. Are there any adjustments you make for that?
Yeah, we go away.
Oh, okay. So you don't like it here in the winter?
Fall time's my favorite season because nothing prettier than sitting in your home with the fireplace going and watching the snow fall.
Obviously you love the Upper Peninsula. Are there any cons you see to living here?
There's not as many restaurants.
Do a lot of restaurants close seasonally during the winter?
We have a few that close down.
How many generations have your family been in the Upper Peninsula?
Oh my goodness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations.
Okay, so you're a Yooper through and through.
Oh, yes.
And what does being a Yooper exactly mean to you?
For me, of course, being born and raised here, and I'm Native American. My family's been here for
hundreds of years, yeah.
Yes. You know, it's real friendship here. Everybody knows each other, are there for each other. That's what makes a little community. And everybody's friendly.
You are. I mean, you've been very friendly right now, yeah.
You're welcome.
Oh.
Can we get a hug?
Oh. She gave me a hug.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still on.
Well, our trip to the Upper Peninsula is already off to a great start. Not only is it so jaw-droppingly stunning and charming here, Yoopers are some of the friendliest people in America. This is what a little bit of the main street here in St. Ignace looks like. Absolutely charming. Lake Huron on the right. There really is something so magical about being surrounded by water on literally every side. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan actually only shares a land border, a very brief one, with Wisconsin. Every other portion of the Upper Peninsula is touching a Great Lake. And that's an interesting thing about the Upper Peninsula. Yes, a lot of these buildings don't seem to have the best upkeep, but it also doesn't look poor or impoverished. It just kind of feels like it's frozen in time, back when things were simpler. These towns never really died because they were never really that alive. Like, look at this storefront. It looks like it is completely abandoned, and it is, but it also doesn't feel dangerous or dirty here. Pristine is what I believe to be the best word to describe the Upper Peninsula, and as you will soon see, other than the weather, there just isn't much wrong with this beautiful place. This is Kiwanis Beach, a little closer to the main town center of St. Ignace, if you could call it a town center. In front of me is the Museum of Ojibwa Culture, which goes into the old Ojibwa, Huron, Ottawa, and French lifestyles from the 16 and 1700s in this part of the country. Now, to get a little into the history of the different native tribes in this area, the UP was first inhabited by the Ojibwa and Menominee people around 800 AD. French fur traders and explorers were the first Europeans arriving in 1620, and this museum was built at the site of the first mission. St. Ignace was actually started as a French Jesuit village back in 1671, and the church was right here. This modern building was built in 1842, and it looks to be open. So 1837 it was constructed. Yeah, Father Jacques Marquette was the founder of Sault Ste. Marie, which is the first European settlement in the Upper Peninsula, about 50 miles north of here, as well as this city. And the town of Marquette is named after him. Before going inside the museum, I want to take a look at the Ojibwe dudums. So these dudums that we're going to see with different animals on them symbolize the strength and duties of the clan. And we have some nice animals. Turtle, some type of fish, the fish clan. So the different clans all represented by different animals. The loon, I love me a loon. Benays are the bird clan, the eagle clan, the crane clan. Wawasheshe is the deer clan. Tons of deer up here. There are also bears in the Upper Peninsula. There used to be sable martens. I think they have gone extinct now. Over here is a fisherman sculpture. And then I wonder if these are the old types of houses that the Ojibwe people used to live in. The lady inside was telling me that Father Jacques Marquette was actually buried right there. They found his remains. And that this was the site of the first chapel of the Jesuit mission. They burned it down. The modern building was built in 1837. Here is the Huron Longhouse. So I just read the sign if you want to read the whole thing yourself. So for when the Huron people came here, unlike the Ojibwe tribes, which were more nomadic people, the Huron people built permanent settlements and had an agricultural-based community. Wow, this is beautiful. But yes, as you are beginning to find out, the Upper Peninsula is not just beautiful. There is so much history here. And to get a little bit into the history, not just of St. Ignace, but the Upper Peninsula in general, I think that's one of the Mackinac City ferries. Most of the economy was based on the fur trade until around the 1830s, by at which point most of the beavers, mink, muskrat, fox, sable martens, all the animals that different people in Europe wanted furs of had mostly gone extinct. And I think as we go inside the museum now, there should be some of that fur trade history in here, as well as more about the cultures of the different indigenous tribes of the area. So welcome to the Ojibwe world. Here on the shores of the Straits of Mackinac, you are visiting the homelands of the Ojibwe. Yeah, the Ojibwe and their culture remain here today. A huge portion of the Upper Peninsula is still the Ojibwe people. Wow, look at these dresses. Traditional Ojibwe dresses. There used to be wolves up here as well. There are actually moose, about 500 in the Upper Peninsula. And these are, I think, what old houses of the Ojibwe would have looked like. Oh, there's a lot of history in this building. Wow. Yeah, a really sad part of our history. Indian Removal Act. Well, that was a super cool experience in the museum. We have all sorts of different flags here. Canada, US, Michigan. I think this is one of the tribes' flags. This is another tribe's flag. This is probably the Ojibwe flag with all the different animals that I saw over there. And Mackinac bands. There's an ice cream store that has closed for the season. But to get back into the history of the Upper Peninsula, after the fur trade declined in the 1830s, copper and iron were actually found in huge numbers in the Upper Peninsula, and especially in the Keweenaw Peninsula, which led to the first ever mining rush in American history. By the 1860s, the UP produced over 90% of the country's copper. And a lot of people don't know this, but Michigan mines actually produced over 10 times as much wealth than the California gold rush. Oh, look at that. Building does not look like anyone has lived there for quite some time, but it also doesn't look trashy. But obviously, with mining being a huge part of the Upper Peninsula, it led to many different immigrants arriving, starting with the Cornish, the Irish, Germans, French Canadians, and eventually the Finnish immigrants came in the 1890s. My great-grandparents were actually part of that Finnish group of immigrants. My grandma was born in Calumet in the Keweenaw Peninsula. And another fun fact about the UP is it's the birthplace of professional hockey. As you can see here, Little Bear East is a NHL-sized hockey rink, and it was actually donated by the Sault Ste. Marie tribe. Now I want to drive to the Mackinac County Courthouse, which is another very old historic building. Now this is the old municipal building and fire station number 1. The county courthouse is actually up on this hill. If you were wondering what the median home value, like how much a house in this beautiful town will cost, oh, look at that one. The median home value is currently only $203,000, which might not seem like a lot, but also remember that there aren't too many jobs here. Incomes are quite a bit lower at about $56,000. And the unemployment rate during the winter time balloons to 18-20% when those summer jobs are no longer in session. The poverty rate is currently 23.7%, which is more than double the US average of 11.5%. And childhood poverty is sadly at 38%. Sandy was right. Fall is a magical time to be in the UP. Now, someone from the Upper Peninsula, such as Sandy, is called a Youper because it's like UP-er. And this in front of me is about soldiers and sailors in the World War. I would imagine this is the First World War. And then behind it is the Mackinac County Courthouse, which was built back in 1839 for $25,000. The current iteration of it that you see today was renovated in 1936, but this is an almost 200-year-old building. Now, the 50-mile-long stretch of Interstate 75 between St. Ignace and Sault Ste. Marie is actually the only interstate highway in the Upper Peninsula, and the Keweenaw Peninsula is the most inaccessible, farthest point from an interstate highway in the lower 48 states. Take a mental note of how big the city of St. Ignace feels, because compared to pretty much any other town we'll be seeing in the next 100 miles, it is by far the largest. Now, some demographics for St. Ignace. The median age here is 48.5 years, whereas in Michigan, it is 39.9 years. 14% of the population is under the age of 18. 22% is over 65. 47% of the population is male. 53% is female. Almost all of these communities in the Upper Peninsula have a lot more females than males. In terms of race demographics, there's actually not a single majority of any race. 49% is white, non-Hispanic. 25% is Native American, mainly the Ojibwe people. 12% is Black. 3% is Hispanic or Latino. 3% is Asian. And then 8% is 2 or more races. A lot of these businesses, like this chocolate factory outlet, they look like they've been in business for at least 60, 70, if not 100 years. I think that's one of my favorite things about the Upper Peninsula, is it's a little flashback in time to when people shopped local and they actually talked to each other. Now, the town center of St. Ignace was down here. I am going north to the Evergreen Shores neighborhood. On my left is the Mackinac County Airport. I don't believe they have any regular passenger flights. And on the right, a little preview of the pristine coastline. Whoa. Someone lives in that still. But the one home for sale is right up this street here. This is 216 Pine Trail. It is a 2-bed, 1-bath property. Looks recently renovated from the photos online. And it is going for $250,000. Wow, that's a really cool house next to it with that balcony. And then you saw I was on the main road right next to the water. Not even 4 or 5 houses. You were just in the thick of the woods. And that kind of sums up the Upper Peninsula. Very little development by humans, mostly pine trees and water. That up there is Castle Rock. Unfortunately, it appears to be closed for the season, but a little bit about this rock. It has a view around 200 feet higher than the shores of Lake Huron. I'll overlay an image on the screen. It looks stunning. And on the right, we have Paul Bunyan and Babe the Blue Ox statues. But while St. Ignace is known as the gateway to the Upper Peninsula, today I actually want to show you towns on all 3 Great Lakes that the Upper Peninsula touches. You already saw Lake Huron, Lake Michigan. Here we go. I literally cannot believe that this is Interstate 75. The Upper Peninsula is genuinely one of the most untouched wilderness areas outside of Alaska. And it's starting to get quite a bit windy. St. Ignace actually has some of the best weather in the Upper Peninsula. In the summertime, it gets up to the 70s. And in the wintertime, it only gets down to about the mid-teens on average. Now, I was originally planning to drive along this southern route, but I just discovered there's a ghost town if we go through the woods in the interior of the peninsula. So I'm on Interstate 75 going north. If I continued north for about 50 miles, I would end up in Sault Ste. Marie, which, with a population of 16,000 people, is the second most populated city in the Upper Peninsula. Yes, the largest city only has around 20,000 residents. There are only 3 communities with over 10,000 people, and there's only 16 total towns with a population over 2,000. Altogether, the entire Upper Peninsula only has 38 incorporated towns, which together take up less than 100 square miles. Now, the first town we're going to be going to is Allenville, which isn't one of the 38 incorporated communities. It is one of the hundreds of ghost towns in the Upper Peninsula. Obviously, there was a lot of mining here, and along with mining usually comes boom towns, which become bust towns, and eventually ghost towns. Over here we have signs for Moran, 5 miles, Trout Lake, 22, and Newbury at 60 miles away would be the next incorporated city or town. It only has about 1,000 people on this road. There is a tower of some kind on the right, but almost all of the Upper Peninsula is 2-lane highway like the one you see in front of me, and I am not going to drive too fast because there are a lot of deer here. I think that was a post office truck. Was that the mail truck? But directly on my right is the ghost town of Allenville. Wow, look at that, it's still standing. Many roads in the Upper Peninsula are old logging trails. It's very easy to get stuck in the mud in these seemingly one way, but I think there's actually 2 ways of traffic on this dirt path. Up here on the left is all that remains of the now ghost town Allenville. Oh, no, I guess there is a bit more that kind of remains. There used to be a settlement here. Now, Allenville was a station on the Detroit, Mackinac, and Marquette Railroad, founded back in 1873 by the Alley Lumber Company. There was a post office that was in operation until 1891 here, but unfortunately, almost the entire community was burned down by a fire back in 1882. You can see some of the foundations, the buildings that used to be here. And this is the lone, still standing structure in the now ghost town, Allenville. Wow, look at that. You almost would think you're in Kansas or something with these fields. And now from this angle, I'm getting Montana ghost town vibes. But we still have around 40 minutes of driving to get to our next inhabited town. So let's head to Naubinway. Here in these super rural communities where you maybe have a few homes and then a highway, little buggies like that are the postman. Yep, as you can see, the mail truck. Oh, there's a post office here. Wow, look at that. This is the community Morant, population unknown, boundaries undefined. Is someone moving? I think someone just moved in or is moving out. That's a Penske rental truck. But it also makes sense why the mail truck is a car. Because a lot of these communities, or a lot of homes, are 40, 50, maybe even 60 miles away from the nearest town. Even the pine trees are changing color up here. Wow. Feels like Christmas. And also kind of feels like Alaska. I have not seen a car for the last 5 minutes of driving down this road. I still have around 30 miles to go, and 7 minutes later, so 12 minutes total, I have spotted my first car on this road, and I don't think I'm gonna be seeing another one for, oh, there's houses here. Oh no, that's just a road. I am now around the halfway point between St. Ignace, which will be about 20 miles that way, and Naubinway, 20 miles that way. This is a roadside rest stop here on US Highway 2. As you can see, compared to the almost entirely evergreen forest in the interior, not even 5-10 miles from here, the landscape has completely now changed. It is almost all deciduous trees. And I wanted to stop here because the Cut River Bridge, the 641-foot bridge, it goes 147 feet above the Cut River. I visited the Upper Peninsula for the first time in my life last year. Let me just say, if you are someone like me who loves hiking, you will never get bored here. There are thousands of gorgeous trails, and the best thing about them is there's almost no one on them. Holy, look at this bridge. This is massive. 888 tons of steel were used to make this bridge. Underneath it, you can literally feel the rumble when the cars go above. The bridge was built originally back in 1947. There are 200 total steps to get to the bottom of the bridge. Oh, this is a white pine tree. It's the state tree of Michigan. And some 150 steps later, this is Lake Michigan. And wow, look how many trees there are. You almost can't even see the bridge. Down there is the Cut River, one of many rivers in the Upper Peninsula. There are actually over 12,000 miles of rivers and streams. You see what I mean when I say it really feels like the ocean up here? Those are some waves. I have descended all 200 steps, and here we are on the beautiful shore of Lake Michigan. Now, a fun fact about Michigan is it actually has more miles of coastline than every state other than Alaska. The Upper Peninsula on its own has more miles of coastline than every state other than Florida and Alaska. And just wait until we get to Lake Superior. There is nothing like it. And this is the view driving over the bridge. You still have quite a few more towns to explore today. I started the video in Mackinac City. We are now almost to Naubinway, and our route today is gonna go a little bit like this. We're gonna explore all of this area and even check out Lake Superior. Look how big that lake is. Out of nowhere, a beautiful beach just emerged among the trees. And welcome to Naubinway. Our first town, if you can even call it a town, for 40 miles. I'm now 41 miles west of St. Ignace, at the Prayer Park and Living Waters Chapel. It's a beautiful, tidy church. I think it's just one room, built back in 1978. But in all honesty, considering that the town that I have just entered, Naubinway, only has a population of 147, it is probably all you need. This is so cute. Yeah, it's literally just the preacher stands there. Everyone else stands around. As you are going to soon find out, the rocks in the Upper Peninsula are some of the most unique and beautiful in the world. Look at those ducks. Or are they loons? This is what I mean. You can literally just sit on that little bench. Time just stands still in the Upper Peninsula. Yeah, there's just so much history in each of these towns. I couldn't possibly go in detail about all of them. And as I mentioned earlier, over the last 130 years, the population has dropped to just around 150, just below 150 today. Now, Naubinway is technically an unincorporated community, like many of the towns in the UP, so there's no official borders of the town itself, and they don't have an official census. But the median age of the residents of Naubinway is 54.9 years. The population is 45% male, 55% female. 60% of the people in Naubinway are white, 28% is Native American. The indigenous tribes definitely have a huge presence still felt in the Upper Peninsula. 7% of Naubinway is 2 or more races, and 5% is Asia. Now, there isn't enough info about unemployment numbers or incomes, but the median home value is $167,000. Currently, there are no homes for sale. Oh, that one looks like it maybe should be for sale. There's something so strange about the Upper Peninsula. Even the homes that look like they're completely abandoned, they don't look trashy. It kind of just adds to the mood. Cozy, quaint, maybe a little spooky. It just feels like it's cut off from the rest of the country. But as I have driven through pretty much the entire town of Naubinway now, I actually want to go down to the northernmost point of Lake Michigan. That's the town of Naubinway. Blink and you might miss it, because we are back in the wilderness again. The northernmost point of Lake Michigan. This is actually very near, oh, this brick structure might be the marker for where the first building, never mind. It's tribute to Emmett Valier, 1978. So the first building was not that, but a fur trader named William Bouchard built the first home in 1843 around this point. It later grew to become the town of Naubinway, which is right across Naubinway Harbor. Naubinway, an Ojibwe word meaning place of echoes, is the most northern community on Lake Michigan. By 1890, Naubinway was a booming lumbering town with a population of around 1,500. Its long history as a commercial fishing port continues today. Of the 5 Great Lakes, Michigan is the second largest in volume behind only Superior, and the actual location of the northernmost point is about 2 miles east of here. And there should be a lighthouse on an island. I think it's right behind that tree. And yep, way off there in the distance, you can make out the Naubinway Island Lighthouse. Holy, it is that little thing right there. And it looks so close on the map. Also looking at the map, there are many much larger islands in Lake Michigan, like Beaver Island, which actually has a population today and a fascinating history. I'd love to check it out in another video. Michigan, What I was meaning to say is that Michigan, along with Maine, are the 2 most beautiful states east of the Rocky Mountains, in my opinion. And I really think Michigan might be one of, if not the most unique states in the nation. Also, when you are on the water, the wind makes it so much colder. It is 62 degrees, but I'm shivering. We have Bodone's Food on the right, as well as a gas station. So they have some semblance of civilization here. On the left, I'm not sure how many of these buildings are still in use, but that is the U.S. Post Office of Naubinway. It was originally constructed back in 1879. It obviously has had some renovations, but that is the same location as the original post office. But the main reason I stopped wasn't to check out the post office. It was to get myself one of the Upper Peninsula delicacies, a pasty. Hiawatha pasties had great reviews, and sorry, we're closed. No! Really? I guess they're closed for the season. It looks like this King Souvenir smoked fish and sporting goods store has pasties, it says on the window, so I'm gonna run across US Highway 2 and let's get ourselves a pasty. It'll probably be pretty cool to just check out this shop too.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing? So you guys have pasties here?
I have frozen ones.
Oh, okay. Nothing.
You looking for hot ones?
Yeah. The place across the street was closed.
Oh, okay.
So what's this place here? You guys sell a lot of fish?
We sell a lot of fish and novelty foods.
Yeah, nice little souvenir shop right on the side of the highway.
Yeah, tourism is a big thing in the Upper Peninsula. We usually go from June till October. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no
I had
worries.
to take that.
Yeah, no worries.
Just that. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. So what was your name, by the way?
Missy.
Missy, nice to meet you. Mango. Where are you from originally?
Well, from around this area originally. We have lived all over the UP, and we took over this store in June. We are the third generation to own it.
And do you fish too?
No.
You just know people who
Right.
do.
My husband's grandpa started this in 1951.
And you were saying it's one of the only shops in this area that's open year-round?
Some people shut down for just a couple days as tourism gets slower. We're the only one open probably today.
Oh, okay.
It's a Wednesday. It's a pretty slow day.
Yeah, I saw the post office was even closed today.
Yeah, we've lived in Tennessee and Texas and stuff like that. Traveled around a little bit.
What's the biggest difference you'd say? Or the biggest thing that brought you back here?
My father-in-law had gotten sick, so then my husband and I decided to come home. We've lived all over the Upper Peninsula, different places between here and Iron Mountain. Our older two graduated from Bark River, and our youngest graduated from St. Ignace.
So obviously it's very remote here. Is that a challenge, or do you prefer that?
You have to know you're going to be busy in the summertime. Last year, there was no snow really up here, so the tourism wasn't very good. No mobilers, no ice fishing, so it really hurt a lot of the...
So even here, there wasn't much snow.
No.
What adjustments do you have to make?
Well, if you need stuff, you gotta make a list, make sure you get...
How far is the nearest grocery store?
The nearest grocery store, there's a little one about 6 miles, but it's probably Manistique, Newberry, St. Ignace, where you're gonna get options.
And what would the nearest Walmart or department store be from here?
The nearest Walmart is Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, wow. So that's
which is
100 miles or 90 miles?
Yeah, an hour and a half. Or Escanaba, probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Are there kids and younger population here as well?
It is kind of dwindling. There's a lot of people that use these for summer homes. The local school isn't very big. There might be like 100 kids or so in the high school.
Oh, okay. That's sizable for this.
Yeah.
Was it like all the surrounding towns though?
I'm not sure on how far that radius is. Hi.
Yeah. What does being a Youper mean to you?
Slower pace. We do a lot of family stuff. You hike, you fish.
Does everyone mostly know everyone and help each other out for the most part?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, people are really great about helping others because you know everybody.
Well, that was a very insightful interview with Missy here at King's Souvenir Smoked Fish Sporting Goods. But directly next to that is the Adoba Hotel, which I believe is the only hotel in Naubinway. And right next to it on the other side of the road is the Top of the Lake Snowmobile Museum, which features over 200 different snowmobiles for display and tells about the history of snowmobiling in the Upper Peninsula. It probably was the way you got around way back when. It also is unfortunately closed for the season. 1965 Polaris. What an aesthetic looking snowmobile. Now around 7 miles up the road from Naubinway is an old community, Engadine. I normally wouldn't stop in a town like Engadine, population unknown, boundaries unknown, but the UP really has so few towns. So as Engadine actually has a quite nice town center, as well as the consolidated school district for Naubinway, as well as the surrounding communities, let's go check it out. Welcome to Engadine. The athletic fields are on the right. Yes, as I mentioned, the whole school district, all of these surrounding towns go to school, play sports, do everything in Engadine. We're gonna cross over the railroad tracks, Pine and Dine restaurant, Now, originally the town was part of the lumber boom of the late 19th century. Oh, look at this general store right here. Wow. And I believe the original post office is right here, built back in 1899. Yes, it isn't the most assuming of buildings, but it is an old post office nonetheless. Oh, and this building looks very old as well. It looks like the lumber industry is still somewhat alive. And there is a gas station in the town as well. I wanted to stop up here at the Garfield Township Mill Pond Park, as it's a nice little park on one of the many, many ponds of the Upper Peninsula. Yeah, nice, beautiful pagoda. And my favorite thing about all of the beauty of the Upper Peninsula is the solitude you get here. There is actually nobody at this beautiful park. This really is America's best kept secret. I am going to cross the main street in Engadine and show you guys the school area. Engadine Consolidated Schools. Library is this way as well. Now, Engadine was a major stop on the Canadian Pacific Railway, as well as the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Sault Ste. Marie Railroad. And those tracks that we crossed over are still operated by the Canadian National Railway. Now, this building you see here is the Engadine Consolidated School District. It is actually a pretty big school area. Now, Missy was saying that the high school has around 100 kids, which is actually a lot bigger than I would think based on how rural this setting is, but I'd assume that this school is attended by kids within a 30 to 40 mile radius. Oh, look at this building on the left. But that concludes our tour of Engadine. Before we head to Manistique, I wanted to check out the Saul Schwab Point Lighthouse. Manistique is right over there. Naubinway was up there. You want to know how remote most of the UP is? Look at the street name. CR 431. Oh, it is a dirt road. Oh, look how wavy Lake Michigan is. So I met a surfer, Max, who's about to jump in the water right now.
Yeah.
It's probably freezing in there, right?
Yeah, I don't actually, do you know the temperature right now?
Sharks, bear.
Yeah, there's plenty of sharks. No, it's probably like low 60s.
Oh, that's not that bad at all, actually.
Yeah, probably higher 50s.
And so you grew up in the UP?
No. See, my girlfriend lives in Marquette. I'm lower Michigan, but I've spent hundreds of hours surfing these waves up here. All of Marquette, Garden Peninsula.
And have you ever surfed in an ocean?
Yeah, so when I turned 18, I moved across to North Carolina, Outer Banks, worked in a surfboard factory.
And what's the biggest difference between lake surfing and ocean surfing?
Way better waves on the ocean.
Okay.
We have a lot of mushy waves that just roll over each other. It's all wind swell instead of normal swell that's under the ocean. You can pretty much surf every day. Us, it's far and few between.
So today's a special day.
Today's a great day.
Okay, and is surfing your favorite thing about the UP, or what's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing about the UP would probably be how it's just nature. And yeah, UP is the surf mecca because you have Superior and Lower Michigan.
Okay. Superior is gnarly, no?
Superior is gnarly. It's way colder. Way colder. But it's got the best surf spots. It gets the most wind.
Have you ever gone in the winter when it's...
Yes. Yeah.
When there's like ice in the water?
Yeah. I didn't have a beard back then, so I didn't get the ice beard. I'm 21 now, and I've been surfing the Great Lakes for 5 years. I learned surfing when I was 16. And it's just been a journey.
So what brought you up here in the first place? Your girlfriend, or?
No, surf.
Really? You came up here to surf?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just a plus.
So when you going out to Hawaii or California?
I've actually been to Hawaii. Love to go out there. You know, I'm trying to make money. I'm starting a Great Lakes surf community clothing brand.
Oh, here in the Upper
Michigan.
Peninsula.
My designer right now and printer is up in Marquette.
You drove down here from Marquette right now?
No. I drive up from Lower Michigan, Brighton.
And how many days are you up here for?
I'm up here until probably next week, but I was just up here last week for the Fresh Coast Film Festival, and then drove down, and then the next day I drove right back up because there was surf.
Is there enough things to do for young people in the UP, or is
yeah, there's plenty. I mean, honestly, like, yeah, surfing's a little, you gotta buy the board and everything, but biking, hiking, just seeing the
So you're an outdoors guy.
I'm an outdoors guy. There's
to the extreme.
There's waterfalls up here that you can just pull over on the side of the road. It's a beautiful place of nature, and that's what you should experience.
Looks like a storm's coming. That's probably good for surfing.
No,
that's good for surfing, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Max.
No problem.
Well, that was great to find two surfers about to go catch those swells as a storm is coming on Lake Michigan. But I am at the Saul Schwab Point Lighthouse now, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere. I had to go down dirt roads to get here. It is a beautiful lighthouse, originally built in 1892, however. The nearest town to this lighthouse is Gulliver, population 563, but I'll overlay some footage on the screen. It's a very, very dispersed township. There's no town center, just a bunch of houses dotting the forest. Oh, I guess there's a gift shop and theater normally, but the actual lighthouse itself is normally a museum. You can go to the top, just like that skeleton up there. Unfortunately, the museum and lighthouse is closed from mid-October until early June, so I will not be able to get that view that I'm sure that skeleton is enjoying. But this placard here says Sul Schwa Point Lighthouse. This whole site, I guess, was established in 1895. But the reason for this lighthouse being built very, very far away from most communities in the UP, Manistique is about 16 miles away actually, is because this particular 100-mile stretch of coast on northern Lake Michigan gets some of the worst storms. You could see that huge storm cloud forming behind Max, and wow, look at this beach. These trees are so cool. I feel like I'm high up in the mountains. I am on a massive old volcanic rock that probably was formed over 1 billion years ago. The Upper Peninsula features some of the oldest rock on Earth. Oh, it's raining. I feel the rain coming. But it wasn't just historically that the Upper Peninsula was a treacherous and dangerous place to get lost. Even today, as you can tell by these massive wind swells and heavy wind, it is still a very dangerous place to get lost. Many of the worst weather towns in the United States are right here. Cell service is very spotty in many parts. Look at those waves. This is a lake. There are literal shells. Look at that. But this is not the ocean. And as we have looped around, Max is out here surfing. So there is Max and the other man. Oh, that's a pretty big wave. Oh, he's riding one wave. Don't get me wrong, the lighthouse was cool, but the way these trees are right on the shores of Lake Michigan with this old rock, I think that's the coolest part. Oh, Max is gonna try to catch this one right here. He got it. But we've only got around 4 more hours of daylight, so Manistique, here we come. And I am now back in the car. The rain has started. I have about 15 miles to go until Manistique. As you can tell by these buildings on the right and the completely abandoned gas station, we are now in Manistique, Michigan. One of the most impoverished towns in the Upper Peninsula with a very high crime rate. Look at this building here, whoa. With a population of 2,838 residents, however, Manistique is the largest town we're going to be visiting today. There's even a tractor supply company. That is a spooky looking house directly across from Manistique Beach and the Manistique East Breakwater Lighthouse. Now, funny story, Manistique was originally supposed to be named Monistique, but a spelling error in the city charter is why it has the current name Manistique. That seagull, or I guess lake gull, because it's not in the ocean, is not able to really fly forward. It is so windy out here, just like it is most days. Look at the sun glistening in on the lake. Now, the town of Manistique was originally incorporated back in 1883, and by the early 20th century, it had become a boom town, mainly due to the shipping of lumber as well as iron from its harbor, right up there on the other side of the breakwater. This concrete breakwater was built back in 1910. The lighthouse was constructed in 1916, and the city of Manistique hit its peak population of 6,380 residents in 1920. Now, this is the Manistique River. This big river in the Upper Peninsula dumps into Lake Michigan, is where a natural harbor forms. There seem to be some old industrial buildings. This used to be a port city. Unfortunately, the logging industry and the mining industry declined in the decades to follow. And today, apart from one paper factory, the economy depends almost entirely on tourism. And it looks like we have a surfer running along the breakwall Look at the light behind the lighthouse. But over here is the Manistique Boardwalk and Riverwalk, which extends almost 2 miles from the eastern city limits. Basically along the entire city, it goes under that bridge, which is US Highway 2, and into the downtown district. I am getting very cold though, so let's go back to the car, put on my jacket, and explore the rest of Manistique. This is what one of the neighborhoods would look like. The median home value in Manistique overall is 160 grand, which is about 33% below the Michigan median of 248 grand. You can really tell a lot of these homes are not in the best of condition. Now the home that is for sale right now is this one, 507 Manistique Avenue. It is a 3-bed, 1-bath property, 1,350 square foot for $135,000. Obviously its population has decreased a lot over the years, but currently the median age here is 50.6 years. It is 82% white, 6% Native American, 1% black, and 11% 2 or more races. What's this building over here? Zion Lutheran Church. Looks like we got some kids walking out and about. It's 3:20. School would have just ended. Now, as you can tell by the many historic brick buildings in town, Manistique used to have a much larger population, and this was a massive boom town. It's sad to see how many of these storefronts are seemingly abandoned now. This is the first city I've driven through in the UP that genuinely seems like it's impoverished. The median household income in Manistique is just $36,500, which is less than half the US median. The unemployment rate is 7.3%, and the poverty rate is 21.6%. Now, the violent crime rate in Manistique is 131% above the national average. And if you're wondering what that big building is up there, that is the old Manistique Water Tower. It was built back in 1922, and as we get a little closer to it, I am driving over the Manistique River now. You can see steam coming out of that factory. I believe that's the paper mill. But yeah, this town has certainly seen better days. This looks nothing like the tourist towns that we have seen thus far. This really feels like there used to be a lot of factory work here. And now all that remains of those factories is this Upper Peninsula paper plant. But over here is Clyde's Drive-In Restaurant. Apparently they have a good pasty, and I am quite hungry. This is the inside of Clive's Drive-In Diner. 50s style diner. See the old poster. And I ordered myself the pasty. And so what's your name?
My name's Hope.
Hope, and you're born and raised in Manistique.
Yep.
As one of the first younger people I've seen in the Upper Peninsula, what is life like growing up
It
here?
is very interesting. There's not really much to do around here.
How is, say, dating life up here?
It's very interesting. Everyone knows everyone, so there's not really many options. Gotta go out of town sometimes.
For how remote Manistique is, do you normally have to go to like a Marquette or Green Bay to do most?
Definitely.
Okay.
The only grocery store we have around here is Jack's. So usually we have to go to like Escanaba or Marquette to go get basic groceries for a little cheaper.
So there's not even like a regular grocery store here, just like a Family Dollar style.
Yeah, pretty much. And really the only restaurants we have, we just got a McDonald's. Like last week we did, and Subway are our only food
McDonald's
options.
just came here last week.
Yep.
And there was no McDonald's before that.
Nope.
So is Manistique growing right now then? If there's
We're growing a little bit, yep, and then we're supposed to be getting another pizza place.
And do you plan to stay here your whole life, or are you?
I do. I actually just bought a house here.
Manistique
So,
born and raised, you're gonna be a
yep,
Uper.
We're gonna stay here for the rest of my life.
Okay.
I plan on it.
Have you ever left before?
I have never left.
Your whole life? You've never
Yep.
you never seen anywhere other than here?
Nope. I was gonna go to college, but I ended up doing online. It's hard to leave here. Everyone knows everyone. It's just like a little family. I've worked at Clyde's now for 4 years, so it's hard to leave here too. I don't like living in a city, so here, country, is just perfect.
And this is a massive pasty with gravy. Let's open it up. So what's inside? It's onions, beef, what else?
Beef, potato, onion.
That's-
Some places do rutabaga. He puts a rutabaga in that.
Okay. Well, that was a delicious pasty experience. I am glad we went to Clyde's Drive-In. We are crossing over the railroad tracks, which have also had a big impact on the history of Manistique. But yes, as you can tell, this is a much larger settlement than St. Ignace or Naubinway. But while we have visited towns on both Lake Michigan as well as Lake Huron, there is a third lake that the Upper Peninsula of Michigan touches, and it is called Lake Superior for a reason. This is the Indian River I am now crossing over as we enter the Hiawatha National Forest. Now, Hiawatha National Forest takes up a huge chunk of the Upper Peninsula Michigan, as well as northern Lower Peninsula Michigan. In total, it's 900,000 acres of untouched natural trees and forests on 3 Great Lakes. And funny enough, back in 1837, when Michigan became a state, the federal report on the UP called it a sterile region on the shores of Lake Superior, destined by soil and climate to remain forever a wilderness. And thankfully, almost 200 years later, it has remained just that. And we have left Hiawatha National Forest. We are entering the town of Shingleton, which is a population of 567 people, but similar to Gulliver, it's a township, so the population is very spread out. Oh, look at that building right there. I still have about 10 miles to go until I get to Munising, which is one of the most beautiful towns on Lake Superior, and we are gonna cross some railroad tracks. Munising and Marquette are to the left. Newbury is to the right. Newbury is the gateway to Tahquahemon Falls. I never know how to pronounce the word properly, but one of the most beautiful falls in the Upper Peninsula. Oh, look at that. The Upper Peninsula is a lot hillier than it looks. The highest point in the state of Michigan is actually 1,970 feet, and it may look like I'm just pulling over on the side of the highway right now, but the reason for this is because there is a waterfall on the side of the highway. Welcome to Alger Falls. The first of many that we will be seeing today. The path up to it is a bit wet and muddy, so I gotta be a little careful here. But this is Alger Falls. I came here last summer. You can actually hike all the way up past the falls, and there's another smaller waterfall, if I remember correctly. You really gotta be careful on this slippery rock. But yeah, look at that flow of water. There's many different steps to this waterfall. And to see our second waterfall of the Upper Peninsula, we really don't have to go far. It's literally 1,000 feet up that way. So Alger Falls is right over there. If I continue up this road for 0.2 miles, we are going to end up at the Wagner Falls trailhead. It's now overcast. It has got quite a bit cooler. It is currently 51 degrees. Now, being that we're just a few miles away from Lake Superior and we're in the northern portion of the Upper Peninsula, the weather is actually quite a bit different than it was in St. Ignace. The highs are usually in the high 50s to mid 60s during the day in the summertime. And in the wintertime, it's usually in the mid-teens to low 20s for the high. The lows are in the high single digits. And every year there will be many days up here where the temperature dips below -20 Fahrenheit, and Lake Superior actually freezes. The city closest to me, Munising, gets 153 inches of annual snowfall, but there's actually a part of the Upper Peninsula, the Keweenaw Peninsula, where the towns get over 300 inches of snow per year. And look at this. Welcome to Wagner Falls. And there's another little mini unnamed waterfall right here. Oh yeah, so when I mentioned there are over 300 waterfalls in the Upper Peninsula, I meant there's over 300 named waterfalls. There are probably over 1,000 total waterfalls in this small region. And just look. Welcome to Munising, aka the gateway to Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. So Munising is one of the main resort towns on Lake Superior. Higher Love Cannabis Company. Weed has been legal in Michigan for 3 years now, I believe. We're gonna be driving through downtown in just a second. I wanna take you guys first to one of my favorite places on Lake Superior. Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore Visitor Center is going to be 2 miles up this road. Some of the best hiking, most beautiful views, most unique landscapes I have seen in my life are on Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. This seems to be an old factory of some kind. Munising's economy today is primarily based on tourism. I highly recommend, if you're ever up this way, to take a boat tour of Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, or maybe one of the ice caving tours in Grand Island. But straight in front of you are the shores of Lake Superior. Welcome to Lake Superior. What is, in my opinion, the most fantastical, jaw-dropping, and awe-inspiring body of water I have ever seen with my own two eyes. I know it maybe doesn't look too big, but that's because all of this in front of me is Grand Island, a massive island in Lake Superior, which makes the Bay of Munising quite calm. The town of Munising is right over there that way. We're gonna be checking it out in just a little bit. This is the Anna River fishing pier. The Anna River is right there. You see it literally flowing into the lake. Now, the town of Munising got its name from the Ojibwe word Munising, which means island in the lake, referring to obviously Grand Island straight in front of me. The first settlement in Munising was originally a Chippewa village in the early 19th century, right around here near the mouth of the Anna River. Now, the modern town, of course, is slightly west. Looks like we have a fisherman. And it may seem like a stormy, choppy day. It really feels like we're in the last frontier, where if you go any further north, it's just dangerous. So this is Tom, he's fishing. Where are you from originally?
Originally from Illinois, raised in Florida. I plan on growing up in the UP.
So how long have you been in the UP?
35 years.
35, wow. And any particular reason you moved up here?
Kids were ready to go to school, wanted a good place to raise.
So you didn't come for the outdoors or the fishing or anything, just...
No, that's a benefit.
Oh, so that's just an extra. And what do you normally catch out here?
Gold, steelhead, kings.
Are there walleye out here too?
Yeah, once in a while I caught a walleye a couple years ago.
And is there anything you miss about life in a bigger city or with more people? Oh, you love it up here. Okay. It's obviously quite windy, quite cold, and it's only going to get colder. Is that something you love as well and embrace? Or?
Oh yeah.
And you love that?
Yeah.
So do you snowmobile and other winter sports?
Used to, now I go south in the winter.
Oh, okay. So you get away.
In the
What's your favorite thing about the UP in general?
the beauty, the solitude.
And why do you think not more people come and visit up here?
It gets real busy.
It does?
Yeah. A couple years ago there were around 1 million people came to Munising to visit.
So do you find you get everything that you need around this area, or do
We do our grocery shopping.
Okay, so it's like, how far is that for you about?
45 minutes.
Why do you think it's still so pristine, the nature here, so untouched?
Locals trying to make sure it stays out.
Thank you, Tom. Hopefully you catch something good,
Yeah, me too.
and stay warm. Oh, I think you might be catching something. You got something?
I had it right there.
Now, Munising is on the southern shores of Lake Superior, about 45 miles northwest of Manistique, and 40 miles southeast of Marquette. This is the Munising City Hall building on an empty Superior Street. Look at how charming these roads look. But as the summer season has come and gone, as you can see by looking around, it almost feels like a ghost town. But the population is actually around 2,000, and this town during the summer months gets over 1 million visitors. I've obviously come after tourist season, but I kind of like how empty and peaceful the streets are. Looks like there's a little stand for food right over there. East Channel Brewing Company. Yeah, so I think there's 2 breweries in town and a few cool cafes. I stopped here last summer and absolutely fell in love with the place. Obviously, straight in front of me is Lake Superior. But this modern town of Munising, way before it became a tourist haven, was actually started by the Munising Iron Company in 1855. The town was a complete failure for its first 4 decades. But in 1894, a man named Timothy Nestor saw the struggling town's potential, particularly for iron as well as lumber. And in 1896, the town was renovated, the post office was established, and the population was 500 residents. Now over here we have a Bigfoot hiding behind the tree. Apparently there have been some Bigfoot sightings in the Upper Peninsula. One thing there isn't a lot of in the Upper Peninsula, however, are chain stores. I think this Subway and potentially a Dairy Queen are actually the only chains in Munising. Greater Munising Bay Welcome Center. Yeah, compared to the vibe last summer, it feels like a ghost town here. Now, the modern city was incorporated in 1915, and the population boomed to 3,500, particularly for the lumber industry. By 1915, there were tons of docks, sawmills, a tannery, and even a local newspaper in town. I got coffee and food. I forget what the meal was, but it was really good at this Falling Rock Cafe and Bookstore last year. I don't know if they're closed for the season or if it's just 5:30 p.m. so they are no longer open for the day. Oh, I went there as well, Gallery Coffee Company. If you guys couldn't tell, I love coffee. That place was really cool too. Now, Munising, like many other towns in the UP, hit its peak population in 1920 with 5,037 residents. But while other mining and lumber towns in the UP died, Munising never really did due to its gorgeous location. Pictured Rock Cruises is just one of many companies that take you on boat tours all across this beautiful lakeshore, to Grand Island, to ice caves, to all sorts of kayak canoeing adventures, all sorts of snowmobiling adventures. The town of Munising today gets between 800,000 and 1.3 million tourists every summer, because it is the closest town to Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. Now, as I walk to Bayshore Park here, I'm gonna overlay some footage of my trip to the UP last summer. Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore is genuinely one of the most awe-inspiring places I have ever been in. One of the most unique settings here on Lake Superior. It doesn't feel quite like the ocean. It doesn't feel quite like a lake, but it's so stunning. It's not crowded at all. There's dozens of waterfalls. And one of my favorite hikes I ever did was to a place called Chapel Rock, which is this rock just jutting out of Lake Superior. It was like a 9-mile round trip hike, I believe, but I had the entire trail itself. I saw maybe one person leaving as I was entering, and then I got this beautiful beach on Lake Superior all to myself. You have to be careful here in Bayshore Park, however, for all of the geese poop. I accidentally stepped in one while I was walking here and overlayed the other footage. Here are the many geese which have supplied said geese poop. And I don't know what it is about Lake Superior that makes it so mysticizing. In my opinion, it kind of feels like we're at the edge of the world. If you take a boat over there, you might fall off it. Wow. I want to make sure I don't get too close to these geese. I know geese attack you, but I could literally just spend days here looking out at the water. This exact park is what made me fall in love with the Upper Peninsula. Obviously, a lot of fishing goes on these lakes. There's some local whitefish at that restaurant there. This is the Pictured Rocks Interpretive Center, which is a free museum to get you prepared for what you're going to see at Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. But how about we walk up this main street? Yeah, it is crazy how empty it is here. 2,003 people live in this town still. Yet I've seen maybe 4 or 5 people in my 30 minutes or so walking around. Now, the median age of the residents of Munising is 47.5 years old. 85% of the population is white, 4% is Native American, 2% is Hispanic or Latino, 1% is black, and 8% is 2 or more races. Now, obviously, these are quite cute storefronts, but I actually think all 3 on Main Street are abandoned. Oh, I remember this place, Art in the Alley, Munising, Michigan. It's a little art walk. Oh, there's no art though. I knew coming into the Upper Peninsula that a lot of things were going to be seasonal. I did not think the most popular tourist town in the UP would seem like a ghost town, but I honestly kind of prefer it. I've always been the type of person that enjoys my peace and solitude, especially when you're in such a beautiful, beautiful place. Now, this is the original Munising post office, established back in 1896, downtown Munising, and the lake is right up that way. And I'm walking down to Alger County Courthouse. Now, Alger County, or the county seat of Alger County, was originally O'Train, which is a different town, maybe 15 to 20 miles west of here. But the county seat moved to Munising back in 1901, and the county courthouse itself was built in 1902. Oh no, I think that's actually the more modern building. The original building is this one here. Those clocks chiming are signifying that it is now 6 p.m. The sun is going to set at around 6:27 p.m. And while Munising in the off-season may seem like a ghost town, there's still one actual ghost town I want to take you guys to. So let's head back to the car to Onata. But before we head, I actually want to show you one of the homes for sale. The median household income in Munising is only $50,000, which isn't that much. But because the median home value is only $192,000, the poverty rate is actually only 9.1%. Yeah, you could buy a nice house in this charming, quaint, beautiful town for under 200 grand. The home currently for sale is this house right here, 223 West Onota Street. It is a 5-bed, 2-bath, 2,300 square foot property. It's only $330,000. I don't know what it is about this weather, but I feel like it really adds to the eerie but also cozy vibe that the UP in general has. And I love how the town literally just ends on this hill. It's Lake Superior all along the town. Maybe 4 or 5 blocks worth of homes, and then just wilderness. The hills of the Upper Peninsula. And speaking of those hills, right here we have an iconic building at the base of the hill. This is the Munising Rear Range Lighthouse. The Rear Range Lighthouse was built in 1905. I know you're probably wondering how mariners are able to see this lighthouse. Well, it actually works together with the Front Range Lighthouse, which should be right up there. So basically, if the lighthouses are in alignment, mariners know it isn't shallow waters, as this bay around Grand Island can be quite treacherous. And if both lighthouses are not in alignment, then mariners know to be wary. But just looking at this hillside with all the fallen leaves, I'm speechless. Oh, the tree was just blocking it. That is the Munising Front Range Lighthouse. But now we are gonna head about 5 miles northwest of here to just one of hundreds of ghost towns in the Upper Peninsula. I'm just now remembering how charming the towns of Ishpeming and Nagani and Baraga are. I honestly could make at least 5 videos just on the Upper Peninsula. This is genuinely one of my favorite places. We are really in the wilderness here. And before we get to the ghost town Onota, however, we are entering Christmas, Michigan. Now, this was originally just a roadside factory for a Munising man who liked to make holiday gifts back in the 1930s. That factory is long gone, but the town has grown now to around 400 residents, and they really play the part being a town named after a festive holiday. Yeah, over here at the Kawading Christmas Casino, they got a Santa Claus. But I'm going to turn up into Hiawatha National Forest camp and picnic grounds because our ghost town is straight up this road. I don't know if it's because all of these trees don't have leaves on them, the fact that it's very windy and overcast, the fact that the sun is set and it's going to be very dark very soon, or potentially the fact that I am currently walking to a ghost town by myself at dusk on the day before Halloween. But all of that combined is kind of making me a little spooked. But holy, that is the Bay Furnace ruins and what remains of the ghost town Onata. Now, Onata was originally the county seat for Schoolcraft County, where Manistique is now the county seat. Back in 1848, it was the original county seat, and this Bay Furnace that you see in front of me was built back in 1869. It was used to smelt iron, and this community actually had a massive 1,400-foot-long pier that went out into Lake Superior somewhere around here so that ships could unload supplies and then also load crude iron onto them. Now, in its first year, 1870, this furnace produced over 3,500 tons of iron, and by 1874, it was producing over 5,000 tons of iron. But unfortunately, the entire town, which had a population somewhere between 500 and 1,000 residents in 1877, was burned down by a fire that same year. Yeah, that must have been something. At night, the red glare from the top of the stack colored the sky and surrounding landscape. Steam engines and machinery roared around the clock, crushing ore, lifting supplies, and blowing air. Oh, and this one says, pioneer iron makers built here because the curving shoreline and offshore islands create a protected harbor for ships. The logs you see along the beach remain from a dock that was, oh, So all of these logs are from that old shipping pier that went out 1,400 feet. And over there, oh, you can see the lighthouse, the front range lighthouse working with the rear range lighthouse that we just saw in Munising. But it also says, a spark from a hot wagon load of charcoal reportedly ignited the fire of 1877 that put Bay Furnace out of business. Not much still remains of the ghost town. It is literally just the furnace, as most of the buildings were wood. But in today's video, we explore just a sliver of the Upper Peninsula. I'd love to actually make a video just on ghost towns. So let's hit 10,000 likes for another video, and I will see you all in around a week for my next adventure. Well, technically I gotta walk back to the car first, and it's getting really dark and cold, so yeah, I'm probably gonna run. Some animal literally just went jumping right over there. Is that a rabbit? I think it's a rabbit.